When you're thinking about selling a home and you're not sure what working with me actually looks like, this video is going to walk you through exactly what to expect. My name is Rayanne. I am a broker and I help sellers make smart real estate decisions when the stakes are high, the numbers matter, and that wrong move can cost you much more than you realize. So when you work with me to sell your home, the process does not start with paperwork. It starts with a real conversation. Selling a home is not just a transaction at all. It is a very important relationship. And we need to get that right before anything is even close to going on the market. We're going to be working very closely together until your property is sold. And if we're not aligned right from the beginning, that can quickly become a very expensive mistake. We're trying to avoid all of that unnecessary things that are going to happen. So before any listing agreement is signed, I'm going to spend time getting to know you. I need to know what your goals are and what your concerns are, what your timeline is, your financial position, and what the sale actually needs to accomplish for you. Usually, this process takes about 2 hours with me. And it's not because I like meetings for sport. Nobody needs to do that. But because there is too much at stake to rush into a sale with vague information and crossed fingers. I truly need to understand why you're selling. Are you upsizing? Are you downsizing? Do you need to relocate? Are you selling an investment? Are you going through a major life transition? Are you managing an estate or a separation? Maybe you have a financial shift. Every one of those situations needs a different strategy. So that's why I do not believe cookie cutter selling is a thing, should be a thing. It's never a thing with me. Once I understand your goals, then we can start looking at the property and the market and the competition and the numbers. And then we'll figure out what is the best way to position your home and work together. Listing a home properly is not just about taking photos, picking a price and then putting it MLS and hoping the right buyer magically appears. That's not strategy. That's gambling with a sign on the lawn. We talk about pricing. We look at comparable sales. We look at everything else that's listed on the market currently. Is it sitting? Have there been price drops? We look at what your active competition is. What is the buyer behavior? What are the different days on market? What's the market timing? What are buyers responding to right now? So yeah, those solds come into play for sure, but it's not the only piece. And then we build a strategy around your actual situation. Sometimes the strongest strategy is going to be pricing it aggressively so that we can attract a lot of attention quickly. Sometimes it's pricing closer to what the data says, and then we negotiate from there. Other times it's waiting until the property is properly prepared. Again, sometimes it's launching quickly because the market window is really strong and we need to utilize that. See, there's no one-size-fits-all answer for this. There's only the right answer and the right strategy for your property, your timeline, and that all has to align with your goals. So from there, we can move on into the prep phase. And this is where we look at what needs to happen to your home before it goes live. This might include things like decluttering and cleaning, doing minor repairs, some paint touch-ups or staging, landscaping, photography, video, floor plans, feature sheets, documents. Simply, it's making sure that your home is presented as clearly and strongly as possible. Not every seller needs to renovate, but every seller does need to understand how buyers are going to see the property. Buyers notice everything. They notice every little repair that needs to be done. They notice clutter. They notice the dark rooms. They notice poor photos. They're looking at when a property feels rushed. They can feel that. Whether it's fair, priced, not, they use all of those things to justify offering less. My job is to help you put your best foot forward from day one and to eliminate all of those negative aspects so that we're not getting any buyers coming in and saying this, that, the next thing. Stats and market both show what your strongest position usually is when you're listing fresh, you're priced properly, you're marketed, you're prepared. So you do not want to waste the first wave of buyer attention. Once the home is ready, We then move into the marketing plan. And when I say marketing, I do not mean posting the listing online and calling it a day. That bar is far higher than that. Tragically, not everyone knows this. So marketing means understanding who the likely buyer is. I do buyer psychology. I think about what they think about, what they care about, what features matter most, how the property compares to the competition, how to create the right kind of attention, and how to make sure that is put in front of the right buyers. We look at, again, photos, videos, copy, digital exposure, buyer targeting, agent outreach, social media, of course, listing presentations, overall story that we're telling about your property. Good marketing is not just showing the home, it positions the home, and that positioning matters. Then once the property is listed, the process does not go quiet. You're not gonna not hear from me regularly. I'm watching what's happening. I'm monitoring all the showings. I'm tracking all the feedback, and we look at buyer activity that's still happening in and around you. So we compare your listing against new competition. You know, I'm watching what is selling and what is sitting and what is changing around us, because the market moves and your strategy needs to be able to respond to that. That does not mean we panic. It means that we pay attention. We list, but before we list, we talk about all of these possible scenarios so that we're ready. You know, we talk about what happens if we get strong activity right away. What happens if we get a really early offer? You know, how do we deal if the feedback is consistently one way? Or what happens if another competing property lists, right? If the market shifts, you know, if we need to pivot because certain things are happening, we're going to discuss that and we're going to work with it. And more importantly, how do we reduce the chance of needing to pivot at all? So that is the point, you know, that we're now at doing work up front and that paperwork. So we need to better prepare a price. We need to position the property from the start. We need a better chance of having to avoid and redirect any decision later. This is why my buyer process is so detailed. It's not simple. And it's not because I want to overcomplicate things. It's simply because selling a home is already emotional. There's a lot of financial obligations involved. It's stressful enough without adding poor planning to the pile. My job is to give you clarity. I want you to understand the strategy that we're going with at any certain time and why. And I need you to understand the numbers and the risks. There's risks with everything that we do, but they're calculated. And the timeline is really important. So I want you to feel confident that we're making decisions for good reason, and they're based on data, preparation, and your goals. It's never guesswork. When the stakes are high and the wrong move is going to cost a lot of money, it's bad news. So if you're thinking about selling, the first step is not asking, what do you think my home is worth? You're never going to get an answer from me. That's not how I work. The first step is understanding what you're trying to accomplish. Then from there, we're going to build strategy around that. And that is what working with me looks like. It's not rushed. You know, it is not generic by any means. It is not just paperwork. I'm not going to hand you a pen and say, here, sign. This is a real process that I have designed to help you sell with clarity and preparation and the strongest possible position from the start.